If the UK wants to leave the EU but continue trading with EU nations, then they might consider staying in the European single market. The European single market is a trade deal between 28 nations which attempts to make trading between members as easy as possible. The European single market comes in two parts. Firstly, when you trade with another member of the single market, there are no taxes, tariffs or quotas placed on the traded goods. Let's rewind that and imagine the UK has left the EU. Taxes and tariffs could then be put on UK goods by the EU, making them more expensive and less appealing to EU countries looking to import British goods. The Independent estimate that tariffs could cost UK exporters at least £4.5 billion a year. The reason countries like to place tariffs on imports is it protects local production. Putting tariffs on foreign products makes their goods more comparatively expensive. This encourages people to buy from the now cheaper local suppliers. In a single market, there are no tariffs between member countries. If the UK leaves the single market, then they'd be able to place tariffs on EU goods, which could encourage consumption of UK products, but would also increase the cost to customers. This also means that other countries hoping to do the same could slap tariffs on UK exports, limiting the UK's trade potential. Staying in the single market also protects the UK from quotas. If the UK stays in the single market, there are no limits to the number of goods they can sell to other countries. But if the UK was to leave, then the EU could put a limit on the number of each product that could be exported to members of the single market. So for example, the EU could say the UK is only allowed to export 5,000 tea bags or 250 boxes of Jaffa cakes to the market. The second part of the single market is freedom of movement. The single market allows for free movement of people, goods, services and capital between member countries. The single market also works to prevent non-tariff barriers to trade, such as standards, packaging and safety. Let's say you want to export your medicine to the US and Brazil. US safety requirements might mandate that you have to put a warning on the front of the box. However, in Brazil they might not be so worried about the warning. Instead, their regulations require that each tablet is half the strength that's allowed in the UK. This means that the version of the medicine you sell in the UK is different to the ones you sell in the US and Brazil. Having different rules and requirements makes international trade harder. All single market nations have the same rules, so if you can trade with one of them, you can trade with all of them. The other benefit of standardised rules is it creates a level playing field. It means that all countries in the single market have to follow the same regulations, and countries can't get ahead by exploiting workers or having low safety standards. You are able to be part of the European single market without being in the European Union. In fact, Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland already do. These countries aren't part of the EU, but they all have access to the European single market. However, staying in the single market might upset Brexiteers for three reasons: fees, laws, and immigration. Being a member of the single market involves the member countries paying annual fees to contribute to the EU budget. Norway pays £740 million a year for its relationship with the EU, and the other two pay hundreds of millions for their single market access. In addition to this, the UK would have to follow the rulings of the European Court of Justice. The ECJ makes decisions to protect the free movement of people, goods, services and capital. To protect these freedoms, all countries which are members of the single market must follow the ECJ's rulings. The ECJ makes decisions based on EU law. If the UK leaves the EU but remains in the single market, the UK will no longer have any power to vote on the laws it will still have to follow. If the UK wants to stay part of the single market, then limiting immigration would be near impossible. Free movement of people, goods, services and capitals is fundamental to the single market. If the UK stays, they will have to continue allowing people to freely move in and out of the UK without strict immigration controls. If the UK does stay in the single market, they might be able to negotiate some immigration limits, but they can't cut off free movement to people in and out of the UK. Leaving the single market would have a huge effect on the UK's economy. The single market can be great for business, as the UK has 500 million potential customers in the EU. In addition to this, UK business can purchase materials from all across the EU without fees or administrative burden. 44% of UK exports go to the EU, and without a good trade deal, all of these exports will be subject to tariffs, quotas, and huge volumes of admin. But the single market isn't the only option the UK has. The UK could, with the EU's agreement, choose to be in the customs union or free trade area instead. To find out more about those options, click the links in this video's description or head over to tldrnews.co.uk/Brexit.